Coming up tonight in news, Prime Minister Christie hits back at Hubert Minnis over storm response criticisms.
The Prime Minister lays out the way forward after Hurricane Matthew. That story coming up.
BPL officials knock claims that BEC had better management. That story's coming up straight ahead.
Plus, how caged furry friends drowned during Hurricane Matthew's passage. Welcome to our news. I'm Dana Smith. Thanks for joining us. Topping news tonight, Prime Minister Christie hitting back at Leader of the Opposition Dr. Hubert Minnis's charge that the government dropped the ball on disaster preparedness and relief in the wake of Hurricane Matthew. Christina McNeil was there as Christie toured the disaster-struck communities of West End, Grand Bahama, and Low Sound Andros. Here's her report.
In the midst of relief efforts following Hurricane Matthew, Prime Minister Christie says he is disappointed that partisan politics is playing a role at a time when everyone should be working together. Christie was responding to Dr. Hubert Minnis, who told reporters on Tuesday that he was not impressed with government's response in the aftermath of Hurricane Matthew. Well, Christie lashed back, saying the opposition leader's comments ranked among the most idiotic things he has ever heard in the wake of a natural disaster.
It is an idiotic thing for him to say, because the context of his coming with us in the way I went with Hubert Ingram during hurricanes was for us to put this above partisan politics, for us to acknowledge that if he had a recommendation to make, we were open to hear it and to see, to determine whether or not it is something we implement. That was the context of this.
Christie and a delegation, including Dr. Minnis, visited hurricane-ravaged areas over the weekend to see firsthand how Matthew affected coastal communities.
And that is why I'm so disappointed in what is really an idiotic, it really rates as one of the most idiotic things I have heard during a disaster, for the leader of the opposition or alternative prime minister to be able to make that kind of commentary. And it disappoints me. And I know we're in the silly season of politics and they have to make decisions as to whether or not they can acknowledge that the government is doing a good job. But when it comes to disaster, the work is yet to be done. Now, what must I say? That the FNM now has decided to make this political, and therefore let me put on my political lens. Okay, I now have them on, and all I see is politics. That's not right for this country, and it's wrong for him to have done that.
If Hurricane Joaquin costs the government over $100 million, Christie estimates that Matthew will double or triple that amount. Christie says every effort was made to warn, educate, and inform residents before Matthew struck the Bahamas, but now everyone must come together to rebuild the Bahamas.
Please tell Mr. Minnis that everything we do, you're going to be with us. All right? And you have the permission, my permission, to take the tablecloth off and look at the table.
Reporting for our news, I'm Christina McNeil.
Rebuilding and reconstruction efforts after Hurricane Matthew will be getting a helping hand from a fellow CARICOM nation. The Prime Minister of Dominica, Roosevelt Skerrit, joined Prime Minister Christie on those tours of Grand Bahama and Andros yesterday, getting an up-close look at the devastation and damage. In that context, he pledged the support of Dominica to help rebuild the Bahamas.
From the government of Dominica's standpoint, in a very humble way, we would have transferred today to the government of Bahamas as our small contribution to the response to Hurricane Matthew, a sum of US $100,000 that will go towards it's going to require, several hundreds of millions of dollars with all of the homes that have been impacted upon.
Skerrit says Dominica is no stranger to natural disasters. Last summer, the small island nation was struck by a tropical storm that left hundreds of residents devastated. Skerrit says now is the time for residents to exercise patience.
And we had significant damage, destruction. We had to relocate 2 communities entirely. And we have started the process of rebuilding homes, new homes for every family who has been relocated. And I understand the challenge which you have. But I want to say to the residents of Grand Bahama that we have to exercise great patience. We must understand it is only 6 days since the storm and not 16 or 60 or 600.
Well, power supply has been restored to more than 70% of Bahamas Power and Light's residential customers. This as the company continues to face heavy criticism over its failure to bring relief to some heated residents 1 week after Hurricane Matthew. Executives of Power Secure say BPL will have more hands and trucks on deck this week, and revealed restoration efforts will cost BPL millions. Giorgio Sturb reports.
Now, while many Bahamians are still out of power following the effects of Hurricane Matthew, Bahamas Power and Light officials say it is not an issue of who has better management between BEC and BPL. As many residential and commercial customers here in New Providence enter the 8th straight day without electricity, criticism has mounted over BPL's failure to restore power supply at a faster pace.
The whole BPL, BEC thing, that's not really there are a number of things that factor into why the response is as it is, but what I can say is our guys have been doing a phenomenal job with what they have, and they're working 16-hour days, and at this point we're about 76 to 78% restored just with that team. But this is day 7. Fatigue has set in.
BPL crews work to restore power on Camp Road, Wolf Road, portions of Cowpen Road, Adelaide, Coral Harbor, South Beach East, Farrington Road, Seabreeze, Yellow Elder, and Imperial Park today. President of Power Secure Ronnie Brannon expects a fleet of 35 linesmen from South Florida and an additional 10 bucket trucks to assist BPL in the restoration effort. Officials say an additional 10 to 15 linesmen from Caribbean countries such as Jamaica will arrive today to assist. The barge encountered difficulties leaving due to bad weather, but is scheduled to arrive in the morning.
Our teams are coming in, and we're loaded on a barge now on the east coast of the U.S. Weather permitting today, and the sea settling down just a little bit from Nicole. We'll be traveling today. Anticipated arrival in the morning, so we'll launch all of our people.
Brannon says restoration efforts could cost BPL millions of dollars. How much it will cost depends on the time it will take to get the work complete.
These disasters are expensive, so I really don't have a dollar figure because we don't know the duration yet. It's a process you have to work through methodically, kind of a piece-by-piece process.
Officials have said they expect power supply to be restored to 75% of New Providence customers by the end of the week. Reporting for our news, I'm Giorgio Sturro.
And a Greco generator at Bahamas Power and Light caught fire at the Blue Hill Road station last night. Deputy General Manager of Engineering and Operations says it was not that much of a big deal.
I saw the picture. It was just, we have containerized sets. This was just one out of 80 containerized sets that we currently have on the island. It's not, I don't want to say it's not a big deal, but in the large scope of things, it's really not a big deal. And that fire was contained, and that unit has been isolated, and the remainder of that fleet is up and ready to go.
Cambridge says the fire did not cause any additional power outages, as
that didn't cause any additional outage. At present, New Providence has a load demand of earning around 153 or so megawatts, and we have 220 to 230 megawatts that's ready to go as I speak. So there's not a generation issue.
According to Cambridge, the generator will be replaced by the rental company as soon as possible. Well, a local pet store owner said he's been left discouraged after hundreds of dogs, cats, goats, rabbits, and other animals he owned lost their lives during Hurricane Matthew. Dragon's pet store owner Philip Ferguson said the animals, which were kept caged or otherwise secured, drowned after his farm flooded.
Goats. We had pigeons, chickens, rabbits, shih tzus, shepherds, Rottweilers. Christmas we had so much cats, super pretty cats, orange and white, gray and white, ready for the people.
Ferguson said the animals were kept for breeding at his farm near Bonefish Pond so he could sell their offspring at his Ross Corner pet store. But as Matthew rolled in, so did the rain and storm surge. And when it was all over, the bodies of the animals were found floating in several feet of water.
The most heightened part was when you see so much animal floating when you go there in the morning, but you couldn't do nothing because the water was too deep. You see, I wasn't expecting that one.
Ferguson said a security guard on site heard the animals in distress, but was unable to rescue them because of the strong winds and flooding.
The security officer, he couldn't do nothing. When he could do was look and hear them crying all through the night, drowning, sound, just, what he told me.
Ferguson said when he arrived at his farm, he was shocked by what he saw.
But when I get out there, it was a disaster. I had to get a truck to help move some of them and put them in the earth and bury them, because after 4 days, they didn't decay,
Ferguson mourned the loss of his goats in particular.
The part was the mutton. I know we was going to do good with them goats. So much was pregnant.
In addition to the animals, Ferguson said he also lost buildings on his farm, animal feed, and other stock. A loss he estimates totals to some $200,000. He explained he was relying on the sale of the animals to turn a profit this holiday season.
That's the Christmas stock. And we were breeding like mad. So I have a whole lot of animals that was pregnant, a whole lot was, ready. So time is December, they'll be old enough to push out.
And Ferguson said he also lost animals in his store. He said hundreds of dead fish had to be disposed of because their aquarium tank filters were unable to operate due to a power outage which lasted several days.
It breaks my courage, but, that's God's will. So right now I just sad with it, but it's a loss, which I'll do better the next time.
Well, still to come on our news.
A former Minister of State for Energy says slow power restoration proves that BPL is handicapped. We have the details straight ahead.
Plus, the Prime Minister defends his decision to appoint Shane Gibson disaster relief head, so stay tuned.